There's a silent contract you signed the day you entered the workforce, and you did not even realize it. The terms were incredibly simple. You agreed to trade the best hours of your day, the peak energy of your youth, and the most productive years of your life. In exchange, a predictable, fixed number deposited into your bank account every 14 days. They told you this was the safe path. They promised that if you kept your head down, worked hard, and slowly climbed the corporate ladder, you would eventually win. But if you are listening to my voice right now, you already know the truth. The math simply does not add up. You have noticed that the people working the hardest are rarely the ones building actual wealth. You've realized that your salary is not a reflection of your true value. It is just the lowest amount a company can pay you to keep you from walking out the door. The system is not broken. It is working exactly as it was designed to work. But it was designed to create obedient employees. It was designed to keep you consuming, constantly reacting, and always waiting for someone else to give you permission to succeed. To escape this cycle, you do not need to work harder. Working harder in a broken system just gets you to the bottom faster. What you need is a fundamental rewiring of how you view money, time, and leverage. You must stop thinking in terms of a salary and start thinking in terms of systems. You must transition from the mindset of a renter to the mindset of an owner. Welcome to the builder's mindset. Over the next 2 hours, we are going to completely dismantle the psychological traps that keep 99% of the population stuck in the rat race. You will learn how to decouple your income from your time. You will learn how to build asymmetric leverage. And you will learn how to spot massive opportunities that the employee mindset is completely blind to. By the end of this audio, you will no longer look at the world as a place to find a job. You will look at it as a landscape of problems waiting to be solved and monetized. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The Illusion of the Safe Path. Growing up, we are all handed a script. Long before we even understand what money is, the adults in our lives start planting the seeds of this script into our minds. It tells us to wake up at 6 in the morning, go to a good school, sit quietly, and get good grades so we can secure a degree. Once you have that expensive piece of paper, the script tells you to find a secure job, work diligently from 9 to 5, save 10% of your income, and invest it safely. The promise of this script is that if you do all of this perfectly, you will finally be allowed to enjoy your life when you turn 65. For a very long time, this script actually worked. During the industrial age, loyalty to a corporation was heavily rewarded. If you gave a company 30 years of your life, they gave you a solid pension and excellent health care. You could buy a home and raise a family on a single middle-class salary. The script was a fair trade of your time for their long-term security. But today, that script is mathematically broken. We are living in an era of rapid technological disruption, staggering inflation, and severe wage stagnation. The cost of basic human needs like housing, groceries, and health care has skyrocketed. Meanwhile, the average salary has barely moved to keep pace. Following the traditional path is no longer a guarantee of security. Relying on that old script has become one of the most dangerous financial decisions you can make. The most dangerous place to be in the modern economy is entirely dependent on a single source of income that someone else controls. Let us talk about the concept of the single point of failure. In engineering, a single point of failure is a part of a system that, if it fails, will stop the entire system from working. If you operate purely as a traditional employee, you are living your life with a massive single point of failure. Your entire financial survival is tied to the decisions of a middle manager, the quarterly earnings report of a corporation, or the sudden implementation of artificial intelligence. If that single point of failure breaks, your income drops to zero instantly. You go from stable to desperate in a single afternoon. Yet society continues to label entrepreneurship and system building as incredibly risky, while labeling a salaried corporate job as perfectly safe. This is the great illusion. We desperately need to redefine what risk actually means in the modern world. Risk is putting your entire livelihood in the hands of a company that would replace you in a week if you vanished. Risk is having zero control over your own schedule or your earning potential. Safety, on the other hand, is having multiple streams of income. Safety is building digital or physical assets that you actually own. Safety is developing a high-income skill set that allows you to generate cash flow on demand. Breaking the time trap. The employee mindset looks at a steady salary and sees comfort and stability. The builder mindset looks at a salary and sees a strict cap on their earning potential. When you are paid an hourly wage or a fixed yearly salary, your income is tied linearly to your time. This is the ultimate trap. Because there are only 24 hours in a day, your earning power has a hard, unbreakable ceiling. You can only work so many hours before you collapse from pure exhaustion. You simply cannot scale yourself. To break free from this illusion of safety, you must first accept a very harsh truth. No one is coming to save you. Your employer is not going to suddenly double your salary. The government is not going to step in and build generational wealth for your family. If you want to create true freedom, you must stop trading your finite, precious time for a fixed number of dollars. You must completely shift your focus from renting out your labor to owning your output. You must become a builder. Builders do not look for jobs. Builders look for inefficiencies, pain points, and unfulfilled desires in the marketplace, and they design automated systems to solve them. And as we will explore in the next chapter, making this massive shift requires unlearning years of intense social conditioning about how the world actually works. Chapter 2. The consumer versus the creator. Look around you. The chair you are sitting on, the phone playing this audio, the clothes on your back. Absolutely everything you interact with in your daily life was created by someone. The world is divided by an invisible line. On one side is 99% of the population. They are the consumers. On the other side is the remaining 1%. They are the creators, the builders, and the owners. The consumer mindset is the default state in the modern world. We are aggressively conditioned from birth to consume. We watch hours of television, scroll endlessly through social media, buy clothes we do not need, and eat highly processed food crafted to be addictive. A consumer looks at the world and constantly asks one simple, dangerous question. What can I buy to make myself feel better? When stressed, they consume entertainment to numb the pain. When insecure, they buy a luxury brand to signal status. When they want to learn, they passively watch a video, but take zero action. The consumer operates entirely on dopamine and instant gratification. Their money flows outward, and their time simply evaporates. Now, let us flip the script. The builder navigates the exact same world, but through an entirely different lens. When a builder looks at a product, an app, or a business, they do not ask how much it costs to buy. They ask a completely different set of questions. They ask, how was this made? What problem does this solve? How did they acquire me as a customer? What is the profit margin? The consumer looks at the world and sees things to buy. The creator looks at the world and sees systems to deconstruct. Imagine a busy coffee shop on a Tuesday morning. The consumer walks in, groans about the long line, pays $6 for a latte, drinks it, and leaves. They exchanged hard-earned money for a brief moment of energy. The creator walks into that exact same coffee shop and immediately analyzes the room. They count the people in line. They notice the price of the average order and the workflow of the baristas. They calculate that with 20 people in line, each spending $7, the shop is generating $140 in 10 minutes. They notice the branding on the cups, the type of music playing to keep people moving, and the upsell tactics the cashier uses at the register. The consumer bought a coffee. The creator received a free masterclass in local business operations. The production-to-consumption ratio. To think like an owner and escape the employee trap, you must audit your daily life. You need to calculate your production-to-consumption ratio. Simply put, how many hours a day do you spend consuming other people's creations versus building your own? If you spend 4 hours watching videos, 2 hours scrolling through social media, and 0 hours building a business or learning a skill, your ratio is broken. You are a pure consumer. Your energy feeds the systems of the 1%. To shift your reality, you do not need to quit your job tomorrow. You just need to slowly invert that ratio. Start creating more than you consume. If you love watching fitness videos, start a weekly newsletter documenting your own journey. If you read about personal finance, package what you have learned into a simple guide and offer it online. If you constantly buy software tools to make your job easier, start researching how to build a simple application that does it better. You must force your brain to switch from passive absorption to active output. The moment you start producing, you step over that invisible line. You join the 1%. Becoming a creator is the first step, but creating things is not enough to build wealth. You must learn how to multiply your efforts so your creations work for you 24 hours a day. To do that, you must master the concept of leverage, which we will break down in Chapter 3. Chapter 3. The Law of Leverage. Give me a lever long enough, and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. This is a famous quote from the ancient Greek mathematician Archimedes. He was talking about physics, but he might as well have been talking about building modern wealth. To understand how the most successful people on earth operate, you must deeply understand the law of leverage. Leverage is simply a multiplier for your effort. It is the magical mechanism that completely disconnects your inputs from your outputs. As we discussed in the first chapter, a traditional employee operates with zero leverage. Their input and output are permanently locked in a strict 1-to-1 ratio. You work 1 hour, you get paid for 1 hour. If you want to double your income, you have to double your hours. But because there are only 24 hours in a day, your earning potential hits a concrete ceiling very quickly. You cannot outwork this mathematical limit. A builder, however, refuses to play this linear game. A builder uses leverage to ensure that 1 hour of work can produce 1,000 hours of results, or generate $10,000 in value. Traditional leverage. Historically, there were only 2 forms of leverage available to human beings. The first was labor, which simply means other people working for you. If you own a factory and employ 100 workers, you are leveraging their time and physical effort to build your products. The problem with labor is that it is incredibly difficult to manage. People get sick, they complain, and they eventually quit. It requires massive overhead and constant leadership. The second historical form of leverage was capital, which is simply using money to make more money. If you have $10 million invested in the stock market or tied up in commercial real estate, that money is working for you around the clock. Capital is a fantastic form of leverage, but it has a massive barrier to entry. You need to already have a lot of money, or you need to convince wealthy investors to give you theirs. Both labor and capital are what we call permission-based leverage. Someone has to agree to work for you, or someone has to agree to fund you. For a very long time, this kept the average person locked out of the wealth-building game. The most massive shift in the modern economy is the creation of permissionless leverage. This is the great equalizer. Permissionless leverage. Today, you do not need anyone to give you permission to build an empire. The Internet has birthed 2 entirely new forms of leverage that are available to absolutely anyone with a cheap laptop and a basic Internet connection. Those 2 forms are code and media. Let us look at code first. Software, applications, and artificial intelligence algorithms are the ultimate army of tireless workers. A single programmer can spend 1 month writing a piece of software. Once it is finished, that software can serve 1 single user, or it can serve 1 million users without requiring any extra physical effort from the programmer. The software does not sleep, it does not ask for a vacation, and it costs almost nothing to duplicate. The second form of permissionless leverage is media. This includes writing books, recording podcasts, making videos, or building an audience on social platforms. Imagine a traditional university professor. They stand in a lecture hall and teach 200 students at a time. Their leverage is heavily capped by the physical size of the room. Now imagine a creator who records that exact same lecture and uploads it to the Internet. That single video can be viewed by 5 million people over the next 10 years. The creator recorded it once, but it pays dividends forever. This is the core secret of the builder mindset. You must stop focusing on tasks that only pay you once. If you are currently trading your time for a salary, your first goal is to spend your evenings and weekends building your own highly leveraged assets. Start writing a weekly newsletter. Learn how to write basic code or use modern no-code tools to build a digital product. Every time you write an article, record an audio track, or build a system, you are creating a digital soldier that works for you 24 hours a day. You are no longer limited by the strength of your back or the hours in your day. You are only limited by your ability to build automated systems. And building those very systems is exactly what we will master in Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Systems over Goals. Every single January, millions of people set new goals. They want to lose 20 pounds, they want to double their income, or they want to finally start that new business. And every single February, 90% of those people have completely abandoned their plans. Society has deeply conditioned us to become obsessed with setting goals. From a very young age, we are asked what we want to achieve. We are told to visualize the finish line. But if you look closely at the most successful builders, creators, and entrepreneurs in the world, you will notice something highly unusual. They rarely talk about their goals. Instead, they obsess over their systems. There is a fundamental flaw in how average people view success. We assume that the goal itself is the driver of the outcome. But think about any competitive sport. In the Olympic Games, every single athlete on the starting line has the exact same goal. They all want to win the gold medal. If the winners and the losers share the exact same goal, then the goal itself cannot be what separates them. The goal fallacy. The employee mindset is heavily dependent on goals. Finish this assigned project by Friday. Secure a 5% raise by the end of the year. Save $10,000 for a down payment on a house. These are all finite destinations. The problem with a goal is that it is only a momentary change in your reality. Imagine that your bedroom is incredibly messy, and you set a goal to clean it. If you summon enough energy, you will achieve your goal, and you will have a clean room for one day. But if you maintain the exact same sloppy habits that led to the messy room in the first place, you will be looking at a pile of clutter again by next week. You are constantly chasing your own tail, relying on fleeting bursts of motivation. Furthermore, goals actually restrict your happiness. When you set a massive goal, you are subconsciously telling yourself that you are not allowed to be happy or successful until you cross that specific finish line. You live in a state of continuous failure until the moment you achieve the result. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Thinking like an engineer. A builder does not rely on motivation, and they do not fixate on the finish line. A builder focuses entirely on constructing a machine that guarantees the result. That machine is called a system. A system is a repeatable process. It is a collection of daily habits, automated workflows, and strict rules that operate entirely independent of your mood. Let us look at two people who want to write a book. Person A has a goal to write a book in 6 months. They sit down to write only when they feel inspired, which is almost never. Person B builds a system. Their system dictates that they will sit at their desk at 6 in the morning, turn off their phone, and write for exactly 50 minutes, regardless of how they feel. Person B will inevitably finish the book, because the system produces the result automatically. When you transition from an employee to an owner, you must apply this exact engineering mindset to your business and your wealth. An entrepreneur does not just set a goal to make $10,000 a month. They build a marketing system that consistently generates 50 leads a week. They build a sales system that converts 10% of those leads into paying customers. They build an operational system that delivers the product without their direct involvement. The ultimate aim of an entrepreneur is to build a system that runs flawlessly while they're sleeping on a beach. If your business requires you to be present for 8 hours a day just to survive, you do not own a business. You simply invented a new job for yourself. Once you understand how to build reliable systems, your next step is figuring out exactly what those systems should actually do. To generate real wealth, your systems must provide immense value to the marketplace. And that brings us to the core mechanism of money itself, which we will uncover in Chapter 5, The Science of Solving Problems. Chapter 5, The Science of Solving Problems. Most people fundamentally misunderstand what money actually is. If you walk up to a normal person on the street and ask them how to make more money, they will almost always give you the exact same answer. They will tell you to work harder, work longer hours, or get a second job. They view money as a direct reward for physical exhaustion. But if hard work was the only secret to wealth, then construction workers and restaurant servers would be the wealthiest people on the planet. The reality is that the modern economy does not care how much you sweat. It does not care how tired you are at the end of the day. Money is simply a certificate of value. It is a completely neutral tool that society uses to transfer wealth from a person who has a problem to a person who has a solution. If you want to acquire more of these certificates, you must stop focusing on how hard you can work and start focusing on the exact problems you are solving. The value equation. The size of your income is entirely dictated by two distinct factors: the scale of the problem you solve and how difficult it is to replace you as the problem solver. Let us look at a standard fast food employee. They solve a very real problem. People are hungry and want cheap food quickly. But because that problem is incredibly simple to solve, and because almost anyone can be trained to flip a burger in 3 days, the marketplace pays minimum wage for that solution. The problem is small, and the solver is easily replaceable. Now look at the founder of a massive logistics software company. They solve an incredibly complex problem for global shipping corporations. They build code that saves those companies tens of millions of dollars a year by optimizing delivery routes. Because that problem is massive, and because very few people in the world know how to build that specific software, the marketplace rewards the founder with billions of dollars. You are compensated in exact proportion to the magnitude of the problems you solve for other people. Spotting the pain points. To think like a builder, you must rewire your brain to aggressively hunt for pain points. An employee complains when things go wrong. An entrepreneur gets excited because a complaint is simply a poorly disguised business opportunity. When you hear people constantly complaining about how long a specific task takes, how expensive a service is, or how confusing a process feels, you should immediately start paying attention. Every single successful business in human history was born from a deep frustration. Ride-sharing applications were born because hailing a taxi in the rain was a miserable, unpredictable experience. E-commerce empires were born because driving to a physical store to find a specific item was incredibly inefficient. You do not need to invent the next global tech giant to build wealth. You just need to find a specific group of people who are experiencing a specific pain and build a system that removes that pain. People will gladly hand you their money if you can give them back their time, their peace of mind, or their comfort. Start listening to your own daily frustrations. What repetitive tasks do you hate doing at your current job? What software application makes you want to pull your hair out? What local service in your town is notoriously terrible, slow, or overpriced? If you are genuinely frustrated by it, there is a very high probability that thousands of other people are frustrated by it too. The moment you shift your identity from a passive worker to a professional problem solver, the entire world transforms into a landscape of endless opportunity. But as you begin to build systems and test your solutions in the real world, you are going to encounter something that paralyzes 99% of beginners. You are going to face rejection, mistakes, and setbacks. To survive this critical phase, you must fundamentally change your relationship with the concept of losing. And that is exactly what we will master in Chapter 6, Reframing Failure. Chapter 6, Reframing Failure. From the very first moment you enter a classroom as a child, you are taught a highly specific and highly damaging lesson about failure. If you take a test and get the wrong answers, you receive a failing grade. You are punished. You are told to study harder, conform to the rules, and avoid making mistakes at all costs. This strict conditioning continues seamlessly into the corporate world. As a traditional employee, your primary directive is to avoid errors. If you make a massive mistake on a project, you do not get rewarded for trying something new and taking a risk. You get called into a meeting, you get formally reprimanded, or you get fired. The entire traditional system is built on the punishment of failure. Because of this constant pressure, 99% of people develop a deep, paralyzing fear of getting things wrong. They become obsessed with perfection. They plan endlessly. They overthink every single detail, and they refuse to launch their ideas until everything feels completely safe. But perfectionism is not a virtue. Perfectionism is simply procrastination wearing a suit. If you want to think like an owner, you must completely rewire your relationship with failure. You must deeply understand that in the world of building systems and creating wealth, failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is a mandatory stepping stone on the path to success. The scientific method of wealth. When a scientist enters a laboratory to invent a new medicine, they do not expect to get it right on the very first try. They create a hypothesis, and then they run an experiment. When the experiment fails, the scientist does not cry, pack up their equipment, and quit their career. The scientist looks at the failed experiment and realizes they just gathered incredibly valuable data. They now know exactly what does not work. They adjust the formula and they try again. This is exactly how a builder approaches business. An entrepreneur does not view a failed product launch as a personal defeat. They view it as a data point. If you spend 1 month building a small digital product and 0 people buy it, you have not failed. You have simply discovered that your specific audience does not want that specific solution at that specific price. You take that data, you pivot, and you build version 2. This process is called iteration. The most successful software companies in the world operate on this exact principle. They release a clunky, basic version of their application as fast as humanly possible. They let the users find the bugs, they listen to the complaints, and they release an update the very next week. They fail fast, they fail cheap, and they adapt immediately. The builder who is willing to fail 10 times will always beat the perfectionist who is too terrified to launch once. Speed over polish. The employee mindset tells you to hide your mistakes to protect your ego. The builder mindset tells you to make your mistakes out in the open as quickly as possible so you can learn the lesson and move forward. Speed is your ultimate weapon. If you wait until you are 100% ready to start your business, write your book, or launch your system, you have waited entirely too long. You should be slightly embarrassed by the first version of whatever you create. That embarrassment is absolute proof that you took action while everyone else was still planning. When you stop fearing failure, you become incredibly dangerous to your competition. You become a relentless testing machine. You try a new marketing angle. If it fails, you try another. You reach out to 50 potential clients. If they all say no, you rewrite your pitch and reach out to 50 more. You must embrace the fact that you are going to be bad at this in the beginning. You are going to make poor decisions, and you are going to lose money on bad experiments. But every single loss is just the tuition you pay to learn the reality of the marketplace. Once you are no longer paralyzed by the fear of making a mistake, you unlock a massive amount of creative energy and time. But having the courage to act is only half the battle. You must also ensure you are applying your energy to the right tasks. And that requires a ruthless evaluation of how you spend your day, which we will dissect in Chapter 7, High-Impact Skills versus Minimum Wage Tasks. Chapter 7, High-Impact Skills versus Minimum Wage Tasks. There is a massive difference between being busy and being productive. In the traditional corporate world, busyness is often worn as a badge of honor. Employees are paid primarily for their time, so they are heavily incentivized to fill that time with activity. It does not matter if they are doing something that generates $1,000 of value or $10 of value, as long as they look busy when the manager walks by. A builder operates under a completely different paradigm. They understand that their time is their most expensive and finite resource. Therefore, they aggressively divide every single action they take into 2 distinct categories: high-impact skills and minimum wage tasks. When you first start building your own systems or launching your own business, you will naturally want to do absolutely everything yourself. You will spend 3 hours picking the perfect shade of blue for your logo. You will spend 2 days formatting a spreadsheet. You will answer every single customer service email personally. This feels like work. It feels highly productive, but it is a dangerous illusion. These are minimum wage tasks. If you can hire someone else to do a task for $15 an hour, and you choose to do it yourself, you are actively choosing to pay yourself $15 an hour. You have not built a business. You have simply given yourself a very demanding, low-paying job. The hourly rate exercise. To escape this trap, you must do a simple mathematical exercise. You must calculate your target hourly rate. Let us say your ultimate goal is to make $250,000 a year. Assuming you work a standard 2,000 hours a year, your target hourly rate is exactly $125 an hour. That number becomes your new North Star. Once you establish that number, every decision you make becomes ruthlessly clear. If you spend 2 hours mowing your own lawn to save $40, you are mathematically losing money. You just spent $250 worth of your time to save $40. The employee mindset calls this being frugal. The builder mindset calls this financial sabotage. You must apply this exact same logic to your business. You cannot build true wealth by spending your days doing things that someone else will gladly do for minimum wage. You must elevate your focus to the tasks that actually move the needle. You must relentlessly fire yourself from every low-level role in your own life so you can step into the role of the architect. Mastering high-impact skills. Your ultimate goal is to buy back your time by delegating the busy work, and then invest that recovered time entirely into high-impact skills. These are the rare, difficult abilities that directly generate revenue, create immense leverage, or solve massive problems. What are these skills? They are things like persuasive copywriting, understanding human psychology and behavior, writing complex code, recruiting top-tier talent, and mastering the art of sales. If you spend 4 hours writing a sales page that converts visitors into paying customers for the next 5 years, that is a high-impact skill. If you learn how to run targeted advertising campaigns that bring in $10 for every $1 you spend, that is a high-impact skill. It can be terrifying to pay someone else to do a job when you are just starting out and have very little money coming in. But you have to view delegation as an investment, not an expense. If you buy back 10 hours of your week by outsourcing your administrative work, you can spend those 10 hours mastering a high-income skill that will eventually generate 100 times the cost of the outsourcing. The most successful founders in the world do almost nothing on a daily basis except think, make high-level decisions, and communicate their vision. They protect their cognitive energy for the 1 or 2 massive decisions that will steer the entire ship. By mastering high-impact skills and ruthlessly eliminating the busy work, you give yourself the mental clarity required to see the bigger picture. And this heightened perspective allows you to spot opportunities where the downside is 0, but the upside is infinite. We call these calculated bets, and they are exactly what we will explore in Chapter 8. The Asymmetric Risk Playbook. Chapter 8. The Asymmetric Risk Playbook. When average people hear the word risk, they immediately think of a casino. They picture someone pushing all of their chips to the center of the table, crossing their fingers, and hoping to get lucky. The employee mindset is completely terrified of risk because they view it as a dangerous, binary outcome. You either win everything or you lose everything, and you end up sleeping on the street. Because of this deep fear, the traditional employee actively avoids taking chances. They accept a fixed salary, they keep their head down, and they hope that their company will take care of them. They believe they are playing it safe. But as we established in the very first chapter, relying on a single source of income is actually the greatest risk of all. The builder mindset operates in a completely different reality. Builders do not gamble. They take calculated bets based on a mathematical concept called asymmetric risk. Understanding this single concept is the absolute key to building massive wealth without ruining your life in the process. Asymmetric risk simply means that the potential downside of a decision is strictly limited, but the potential upside is virtually infinite. You cap what you can lose, but you leave what you can gain completely uncapped. Capping the downside. Let us look at a practical example of a terrible risk. Imagine you take out a loan for $100,000 to open a traditional brick-and-mortar restaurant. You sign a 5-year lease on a building. If the restaurant fails, you are legally completely trapped. You lose your initial investment, you go into massive debt, and your credit is ruined for a decade. The downside is catastrophic. Now, let us look at an asymmetric risk. Imagine you want to start a digital consulting business. You spend $50 to register a domain name. You spend another $20 on a website hosting platform. You spend 3 weekends writing articles and recording videos to explain your consulting services to the world. If nobody hires you, what is your absolute worst-case scenario? You lost $70 and a few weekends of your time. Your downside is strictly capped. You are not going to go bankrupt, and you are not going to ruin your life over $70. But what happens if it works? What if a client finds your website, loves your videos, and hires you for a $5,000 contract? What if that leads to 10 more clients? The upside is completely uncapped. Entrepreneurs are not reckless risk takers. They are relentless risk managers. They only play games where a loss is cheap, but a victory is life-changing. The Internet Multiplier. Before the Internet, finding asymmetric opportunities was incredibly difficult. You usually needed a massive amount of capital just to play the game. But today, the digital economy is built entirely on asymmetric bets. Every time you write a line of code, every time you publish a piece of content, and every time you launch a digital product, you are taking an asymmetric risk. It costs you almost nothing to post a video online. The downside is zero. But if that video goes viral and reaches 1 million people, it could instantly launch a 6-figure business. You are risking pennies to potentially make millions. This is why builders launch so many different projects. They know that they do not need to be right every single time. If you take 10 asymmetric bets and 9 of them completely fail, you only lost a small amount of time and a few $100s. But if the 10th bet succeeds, it pays for all of the failures 100 times over. To think like an owner, you must actively seek out asymmetric opportunities in your daily life. You must stop protecting your ego and start placing small, highly calculated bets. You must become comfortable with losing small amounts of time to gather data, knowing that one massive victory will change your entire trajectory. As you begin taking these bets, you need to ensure that you are building something unique. You cannot simply copy what everyone else is doing and expect extraordinary results. To truly dominate your market, you must learn how to combine your specific skills into something entirely new. And we will build that exact framework in Chapter 9, Building Your Personal Monopoly. Chapter 9. Building Your Personal Monopoly. In the traditional world of employment, you are taught to be a generalist. You are told to follow a standardized curriculum, learn the same skills as everyone else in your industry, and compete for the exact same job titles. This creates a massive problem. When you are doing the same thing as 10,000 other people, you are a commodity. And the price of a commodity is always driven down to the lowest possible number. The employee mindset is constantly trying to be the best. They want to be the best accountant, the best graphic designer, or the best project manager. But being the best is incredibly difficult. There is always someone willing to work longer hours, someone with more experience, or someone willing to accept a lower salary just to take your place. A builder does not want to be the best. A builder wants to be the only. They understand that competition is for losers. If you are competing with others, you have no pricing power. You are at the mercy of the market. To build true wealth, you must construct what we call a personal monopoly. The power of skill stacking. A personal monopoly is the unique intersection of your specific skills, your interests, and your personality. You are not trying to be the top 1% in a single category. Instead, you are looking to be in the top 20% of 3 or 4 different, unrelated categories. Let us look at a practical example. Imagine an average accountant. There are millions of them. They are easily replaceable. Now, imagine an accountant who also understands deep-level computer programming. They are much rarer. Now, imagine that same person also has a deep interest in the high-stakes world of professional sports. Suddenly, they are not just an accountant. They are one of the only people on the planet who can build custom financial software for professional sports franchises. By stacking these 3 skills together, they have eliminated 99% of their competition. They no longer have to beg for a job. They have a personal monopoly. They can charge premium prices because they are the only person who can solve that specific, complex problem. You do not get rich by doing what everyone else is doing. You get rich by becoming the only person who can do what you do. Finding your specific knowledge. To build your own monopoly, you must identify your specific knowledge. This is the information and the skills that feel like play to you, but look like hard work to everyone else. Specific knowledge is usually found at the edge of your natural curiosities. It is something you would do for free, because you genuinely find it fascinating. Perhaps you have a deep understanding of ancient history, but you are also a master of modern social media marketing. You could build a personal monopoly by creating a high-end agency that helps museums and historical sites reach a younger audience. Perhaps you are a fitness expert who also happens to be a professional cellist. You could build a specialized training program specifically for elite musicians to prevent repetitive strain injuries. The more specific you become, the more valuable you are. When you are the only person at the intersection of 2 or 3 different fields, you do not have to compete. You simply exist in a market of one. People will seek you out. Opportunities will find you. You are no longer renting out your time. You are selling your unique perspective. Your goal is to build a brand around your name that is synonymous with a specific solution. When people have a specific problem, they should immediately think of you. This is the ultimate form of career insurance. It is the only way to ensure that you are never a victim of a corporate layoff or a shifting economy. Once you have identified your personal monopoly and built your systems, the only thing left to do is take massive, consistent action. Many people listen to audiobooks like this and feel inspired, but they never actually cross the finish line. To ensure that you are not one of them, we are going to lay out a concrete roadmap. And that is exactly what we will do in our final chapter, the 90-day execution plan. Chapter 10. The 90-day execution plan. Knowledge without execution is the ultimate form of self-sabotage. You have now spent nearly 2 hours deconstructing the employee mindset and learning the architectural principles of the builder. You understand leverage, systems, asymmetric risk, and the power of a personal monopoly. But if you turn off this audio and return to your old habits tomorrow morning, this information will simply become another piece of entertainment you consumed. To ensure that does not happen, you need a concrete roadmap. You do not need a 5-year plan. The world moves too fast for 5-year plans. You need a 90-day execution cycle. 90 days is long enough to see real compounding results, but short enough to maintain a sense of intense urgency. Phase 1. The audit. The first 30 days are about clearing the wreckage of the employee mindset. You must perform a ruthless audit of your time and your attention. Track every single hour of your day for 1 week. Identify the low-level minimum wage tasks that are eating your soul. Identify the consumption habits that are draining your cognitive energy. During this phase, your only goal is to reclaim 10 hours of your week. You do this by saying no to social obligations that do not serve your vision, by automating your basic chores, and by cutting out the digital noise. These 10 hours are your seed capital. They are the bricks you will use to build your first system. Phase 2. The builder cycle. In days 30 to 60, you must choose your asymmetric bet. Do not try to launch 5 businesses at once. Choose one high-impact skill you want to master, or one specific problem you want to solve. Whether it is starting a niche newsletter, building a simple software tool, or creating a specialized consulting offer, this is your period of rapid experimentation. Your goal is not to be perfect. Your goal is to fail as fast and as cheaply as possible. Launch a basic version of your idea. Put it in front of real people. Ask for feedback. If nobody cares, pivot immediately. If people show interest, double down. You are looking for the first spark of market validation. The difference between a dreamer and a builder is that the builder starts before they are ready. Phase 3. The systems build. In the final 30 days, you shift from manual labor to systems design. Once you have found a small win, your job is to automate it. If you found a way to get clients, write a standard operating procedure so a virtual assistant can do it for you. If you created a piece of content that people love, use tools to schedule and distribute it across multiple platforms. By the end of 90 days, you should have at least one small machine that runs without your constant direct involvement. It might only be making you $100 a month, but that does not matter. The magnitude of the money is less important than the nature of the money. You have successfully decoupled your income from your time. You have become an owner. Conclusion. The architecture of freedom. As we come to the end of this journey, I want you to look back at that silent contract we discussed at the very beginning. The one where you traded your best years for a predictable salary and the illusion of safety. By listening to this entire audiobook, you have effectively torn up that contract. You now know that the only true security in the modern world is the ability to create value on your own terms. You know that you are not a cog in a machine, but the architect of your own reality. The path of the builder is not easy. It is filled with uncertainty, late nights, and the constant sting of failed experiments. Your friends and family might not understand why you are working so hard on something they cannot see yet. They might tell you to be realistic and go back to the safe path. But remember, the most realistic thing you can do is prepare for a world where the old rules no longer apply. The builders are the ones who will thrive in the age of automation. The owners are the ones who will define the future. The bricks are in your hands. The blueprints are in your mind. It is time to stop renting out your life and start building your empire. This concludes our journey today. Thank you for listening. If you found value in this, please leave a like. It really helps the channel. I'd also love to hear your favorite takeaway in the comments below. Subscribe for more audiobooks, and I'll see you in the next one.